I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who starts a story with, "You wouldn't believe what happened to me." But here I am. This isn't just some tale of marital strife, it's a full-blown saga of betrayal with a side of financial ruin. If you'd told me a year ago that my life would turn into some soap opera, I'd have laughed in your face. Yet here I am, 58 years old, sitting in the shell of a home that used to be filled with warmth and love, trying to piece together how everything went so wrong. My name is Joshua, and for most of my adult life I was a man who believed in stability, in hard work, and in the kind of love that lasts a lifetime. For 30 years, I was married to Rebecca. To the outside world, we were a power couple. We built a comfortable life together. No kids, but plenty of memories and a shared vision of what our future would look like. Or so I thought. The realization that my marriage was a facade came slowly at first, like the tide creeping in. Subtle changes in Rebecca's demeanor, unexplained absences, and the complete lack of interest in us told me something was off. I dismissed these thoughts as paranoia. After all, we had history, a mortgage, and shared dreams that bound us together. But the human heart, as they say, is a deceitful thing. Rebecca started coming home late, brushing off my questions with vague references to extra hours at work or meeting up with her girlfriends. But the signs were there, ignored by my naive, trusting heart. It was a Saturday morning when my world began to crumble, a day that started like any other. Rebecca was out on another errand, and I decided to tackle the ever-growing pile of bills and statements that had taken over the kitchen table. It was then I noticed several large withdrawals from our joint account. At first, I assumed it was a mistake, perhaps an auto payment gone awry or a purchase I'd forgotten. But as I dug deeper, the transactions were too frequent, too large, and too suspicious to ignore. I felt a sickening pit form in my stomach. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about commitment, about everything I thought we stood for. The truth unraveled quickly. Late one night, while Rebecca claimed she was working late, I took a drive to her office, only to find it deserted. The parking lot was empty, save for a few cars of the cleaning crew. My heart pounded as I drove aimlessly, ending up at a bar where I could attempt to drown the growing dread with a scotch or two. That's when I overheard a conversation between two guys discussing a new business that had just opened downtown, one that Rebecca had mentioned investing in through a mutual friend. A sickening realization hit me. Could my wife be siphoning our funds to bankroll someone else's dreams? The thought was too painful to consider, but I needed to know the truth. I hired a private investigator, a decision I never imagined I'd make in my life. The days waiting for his report felt like an eternity, each moment stretching with the weight of suspicion and fear. When the report finally arrived, it shattered the last remaining illusions I clung to. Rebecca wasn't just having an affair, she was funding her lover's new business with our savings. The man in question, Mark, was someone I'd never heard of, a slick entrepreneur who'd charmed my wife and apparently our bank account. The betrayal was as deep as it was comprehensive. She was not just betraying our vows, but was actively stealing our future to bolster her lover's venture. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, disbelief, but the strongest was a burning desire for justice. I wasn't going to be made a fool of, and I certainly wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had the receipts, literally and figuratively, and I intended to use them. The legal proceedings began almost immediately. I confronted Rebecca with the evidence, her face a mask of shock and defiance. She tried to explain, to justify her actions as if any words could mend the chasm she'd torn in my life. But there was no going back. We were beyond words, beyond apologies. The divorce proceedings were as messy as you'd expect, filled with accusations and the kind of bile that can only come from deep betrayal. Yet, amid the chaos, I found a strange sense of clarity. This was my chance to reclaim my life, to take back what was mine. I wasn't just going to let this chapter close quietly. I had to make sure justice was served, that Rebecca and her partner would face the consequences of their actions. In the end, I wasn't just fighting for myself, but for the principle that trust and love are not commodities to be traded for personal gain. As I sit here recounting the story to you, the pain is still fresh, but so is the resolve. Life has a way of knocking you down when you least expect it, but it's how you get up that defines who you truly are. And me? I'm getting up with a vengeance. After the initial shock of betrayal, there's a numbness that seeps in, a sort of anesthetic to dull the edges of your emotional wounds. But as I sat there in my half-empty living room, the numbness began to wear off, replaced by a fiery resolve. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was rightfully mine, it was also about ensuring that Rebecca and her slick partner in crime, Mark, wouldn't continue their deceit unchallenged. The legal process was a brutal, soul-sucking ordeal. Divorce is never pretty, but when infused with allegations of financial deceit and infidelity, it becomes an all-out war. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Karen, was relentless. She went through our finances with the precision of a surgeon, dissecting years of bank statements, investments, and expenditures. Each revelation felt like another twist of the knife. Rebecca's defense was predictably weak. She pleaded ignorance, claimed the withdrawals were to help a friend in need, and insisted that she never thought it would jeopardize our finances. The courtroom was her stage, but charm and crocodile tears only go so far when the evidence is stacked against you. Karen laid out the facts with surgical precision, painting a stark picture of betrayal and theft. As the proceedings dragged on, I found solace in unexpected places. The small moments of kindness from friends, a neighbor dropping by with a homemade casserole, or an old college buddy calling just to check in. These gestures were reminders that despite the wreckage of my personal life, I wasn't completely alone. Slowly, I began piecing together a new routine, a new normal. One evening, about a month into the legal battle, I found myself sitting in a small cafe downtown. It was one of those places with dim lighting and cozy booths that seemed perfectly designed for introspection. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed a flyer on the community board advertising a support group for people going through divorce. I hesitated, my pride flaring up at the thought of sitting in a circle, sharing my personal drama with strangers. But something about it called to me, perhaps the need to connect with others who understood this unique brand of pain. The first meeting was awkward. I sat in the back, listening more than speaking, absorbing the stories of others. There was a woman whose husband had left her for a younger colleague, a man blindsided by his wife's sudden departure, another who was navigating the choppy waters of co-parenting. Different stories, different nuances, but the underlying emotions were all too familiar. By the end, I felt a weight lift slightly off my shoulders. There's a strange comfort in shared suffering, in knowing you're not the only one walking this treacherous path. As the weeks passed, things slowly moved forward in court. Rebecca's demeanor changed, her initial defiance giving way to a more subdued acceptance of the inevitable. The turning point came when Mark's business venture, the one she had siphoned our savings into, collapsed spectacularly. The irony was almost poetic. The very dream she had sacrificed our marriage for turned out to be a mirage, built on shaky foundations and empty promises. With that collapse, any hope Rebecca had of maintaining her facade of righteousness crumbled too. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me a significant portion of what was left of our joint assets. It wasn't a total victory. No settlement could fully repair the damage done or erase the scars of betrayal, but it was a step towards justice and closure. In the aftermath, I took some time to reflect. Sitting alone in a small cabin I rented upstate, I let the tranquility of nature wash over me. The woods have a way of soothing the soul, the rustle of leaves and chirping of crickets providing a backdrop for contemplation. I thought about the man I was before all of this, a man devoted to his marriage, content in his routines, and blind to the storm brewing right under his nose. And I thought about the man I was becoming, wiser, certainly more cautious, but also more determined than ever to rebuild. With the legal battles behind me, I started focusing on what lay ahead. The support group had become a regular part of my life, a source of strength and unexpected friendship. I even considered volunteering to help others navigate their own post-divorce journeys. Rebecca eventually moved out of town, seeking a fresh start in a new city, a chance to escape the whispers and judgment that came with her actions. I wished her no ill will. In fact, I hoped she found whatever it was she'd been searching for. As for Mark, he faded away into obscurity. a footnote in the drama that had consumed my life. In the end, justice had been served, not just in the courtroom, but in the quiet, personal victories that marked my path to healing. I emerged from the wreckage more resilient, more aware of my own strength and capacity for forgiveness. Life has a way of teaching you lessons in the most painful ways, but it's what you do with those lessons that truly matters. And me, I'm moving forward, one day at a time, with a heart scarred but open to the possibilities of what comes next. In the months that followed the finalization of my divorce, life took on a new rhythm. It was a rhythm punctuated by independence and a newfound appreciation for the simple things. I'd always been a morning person, but now the early hours held a special kind of solace. With the first light of dawn creeping through my window, I'd lace up my running shoes and head out into the crisp air. The steady beat of my feet hitting the pavement was both a meditation and a reminder of my ability to persevere. Financial recovery was another aspect of my life that demanded attention. Though the court ruling had been in my favor, untangling the web of debts and lost savings was no small feat. It was as if every dollar had a story, a chapter in the saga of my marriage that needed to be rewritten. I spent hours meeting with financial advisors, crafting budgets, and learning to navigate the world of investments on my own. It was daunting, yet strangely empowering to take control of my financial destiny. Work became a sanctuary, a place where I could channel my energy into something productive and rewarding. I poured myself into my projects, earning the kind of recognition that, in retrospect, I realized I'd been craving for years. My colleagues, aware of my personal upheaval, rallied around me with support and encouragement. It was in the everyday interactions, the coffee breaks, the shared jokes, the late nights working on deadlines, that I found a renewed sense of belonging. The support group continued to play a crucial role in my healing process. As I listened to new members share their stories, I often caught glimpses of my former self in their words. The pain, the confusion, the anger, it was all so familiar. But each week, I also witnessed transformation, the gradual shift from bitterness to hope. I became more vocal, sharing my experiences and offering advice to those just beginning their own journeys. It wasn't long before the group facilitator approached me with an unexpected proposition. Would I consider co-leading a new group for men specifically? The idea intrigued me. I'd read plenty about how men often struggle to express vulnerability, how societal expectations could stifle emotional honesty. This was an opportunity to create a space where men could feel truly heard and supported. At first I was hesitant. I didn't see myself as a leader or a counselor. But then I remembered all those nights when I'd felt so utterly alone, desperate for someone to tell me I wasn't entirely adrift. Maybe I could be that someone for others. As I mulled over the decision, I found myself returning to that cabin upstate, the place that had become a symbol of reflection and renewal for me. The trees were thicker now, casting long shadows over the forest floor, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. Sitting on the porch, I thought about the road ahead. I realized that helping others was not just about them. It was also a step in my own healing, a way to reclaim purpose and direction. Back in the city, I said yes to the facilitator, and we set about organizing the new group. The first meeting was nerve-wracking. I wasn't entirely sure how to start, what to say to break the ice among a room full of strangers, each carrying his own burden of pain and loss. But as we went around the circle, sharing introductions, a sense of camaraderie slowly emerged. These men, with their varied backgrounds and stories, were united by a single thread, an experience that had upended their lives. Leading the group became a rewarding challenge. I learned as much from the members as they presumably did from me. It was a reminder that healing is rarely a linear process. It's full of setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of clarity and confusion. And as I facilitated these discussions, I felt my own wounds slowly knitting together, the scars becoming less tender with each passing week. During one session, a man named Paul shared a story that struck a chord with me. His wife had left him suddenly, taking their children across the country. His grief was compounded by guilt and regret, emotions I knew all too well. As he spoke, I realized how far I'd come, how the rawness of early pain had given way to acceptance, I offered him words of encouragement, simple truths about resilience and the power of community that I'd learned through my own journey. Outside the group, life continued to evolve. I found myself more open to new experiences, more willing to step out of my comfort zone. I reconnected with old friends, those bonds that had been neglected in the chaos of marriage and divorce. I even ventured back into the dating world, albeit cautiously. It was a delicate dance, balancing vulnerability with self-preservation, but one that I approached with an open heart. And so, life moved forward. Each day brought its own set of challenges and triumphs, reminders that healing is both an individual and collective journey. I learned to embrace change, to welcome the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. And through it all, I held on to the knowledge that I was not alone, that I was part of a larger tapestry of human experience. In the quiet moments when the weight of the past threatened to resurface, I reminded myself of a simple truth. I had survived the storm, and I was stronger for it. The future was unwritten, a vast expanse of possibility stretching out before me. And in that uncertainty, I found a kind of freedom, a chance to craft a life not defined by betrayal, but by resilience and hope. As I settled into my new role as a co-leader of the men's support group, I couldn't help but reflect on how drastically my life had changed over the past year. The journey from betrayal to a place of acceptance was anything but smooth, yet every step, every stumble had brought me to this point. It was almost surreal to think about how much I'd grown, how much I'd learned about myself and about the strength of the human spirit. One evening, after a particularly moving session with the group, I found myself wandering the streets of the city, lost in thought. The city lights flickered above like a constellation of tiny hopes, each one representing a step forward, a new beginning. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill my lungs, and allowed myself a moment of gratitude for everything I had now, the kind of gratitude that can only come from having lost something first. In the days that followed, I continued to immerse myself in work and the support group, but I also began paying more attention to the quieter moments, the spaces where life's subtler lessons often hide. I started keeping a journal, something I'd flirted with in the past but never fully committed to. It became a nightly ritual, a way to unpack the day's emotions, to make sense of the chaos that sometimes still lingered in the back of my mind. Writing allowed me to confront truths I hadn't fully acknowledged. It forced me to examine the choices I'd made, to take responsibility for my part in the dissolution of my marriage. This introspection was hard, often painful, but necessary. I realized that while my ex-wife's betrayal had shattered the life we'd built together, my own actions, or lack thereof, had set the stage for that betrayal. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but crucial for my healing. One afternoon, as I sat at a coffee shop with my journal open, an old friend, Mike, walked in. We had drifted apart over the years, largely due to the demands and distractions of marriage and career. Seeing him now felt like a gift. We exchanged pleasantries, and before long we were lost in conversation, reminiscing about old times and catching up on the years that had slipped between us. Mike had also been through a divorce, and our shared experiences created an immediate bond. We talked openly about our struggles, the devastation of betrayal, and the slow journey back to something resembling a new normal. It felt good to connect with someone who understood, someone who had weathered the same storm. We promised to stay in touch, to not let life's demands pull us apart again. Reconnecting with Mike sparked something in me. It was a reminder of the importance of friendship, of community. I realized that while I'd been focused on rebuilding my life, I hadn't fully embraced the people around me. I'd been so intent on proving I could stand on my own that I'd ignored the support and camaraderie that true friendship offers. With this newfound perspective, I started reaching out more, inviting friends over for dinner or meeting them for drinks after work. These small acts of connection gradually wove a stronger safety net around me, one that cushioned the inevitable falls and lifted me higher during the good times. As the months passed, I noticed a change in my own reflection. The lines of worry that had etched themselves deep across my face were softening, replaced by a calm acceptance. I was learning to live in the present, to let go of the past without forgetting the lessons it had taught me. There was, however, one ghost from my past that I knew I needed to confront. My ex-wife and I had maintained minimal contact, mainly through lawyers during the divorce proceedings. But now, with some distance and clarity, I felt a growing need to meet her face to face, to close that chapter of my life with intention and dignity. I reached out, suggesting we meet for coffee. To my surprise, she agreed. As the day approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. I wasn't sure what I hoped to gain from this meeting, but I knew it was something I needed to do. When we finally sat across from each other, the cafe bustling around us, it was as if time had folded in on itself. She looked both familiar and foreign, a reminder of the life we'd shared and the distance we'd traveled since. We talked cautiously at first, each feeling out the other's emotional terrain. Gradually, we peeled back the layers of our shared history. There were apologies and admissions, moments of shared laughter over memories that had once been painful to recall. I realized that forgiveness wasn't about absolution. It was about releasing the hold that past grievances had on me. It was about allowing myself to move forward without the weight of resentment. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure, a finality that was both sad and liberating. I walked away from that meeting lighter, feeling as though a chapter had truly been closed. And in its place, a new chapter awaited, filled with unknown possibilities, and the promise of a life shaped by resilience and hope. Life continued, as it always does, with its ebbs and flows. But through it all, I retained a sense of peace, a quiet confidence that whatever came next I would be ready, because I had faced my greatest fears and emerged on the other side, unbroken. In the end, it wasn't just about surviving the storm. It was about learning to dance in the rain, embracing the uncertainty of life with an open heart and a steady soul. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive. After that meeting with my ex-wife, a sense of renewal washed over me. The air felt different, lighter somehow, as if I'd finally shrugged off a heavy cloak of unresolved emotions. I knew that moving forward meant more than just letting go of the past. It required actively participating in the creation of a new future, a future that remained unwritten and full of potential. The decision to meet her had been a calculated one, born from months of introspection and a desire to put the past to rest. I walked away from that encounter with a newfound understanding of forgiveness, not necessarily as a gift to her, but as a release for myself. From that point on, I made a conscious effort to live fully in the present, welcoming whatever life had in store. Work at the support group continued to be a grounding force in my life. Each week, I found myself drawing strength from the stories shared by the men in the group. Many were grappling with their own versions of heartbreak and betrayal, and while the details varied, the underlying emotions were strikingly similar. Together we navigated the turbulent waters of loss, guided by a mutual desire to heal and grow. One particular evening, as I listened to a new member recount his wife's infidelity and the subsequent financial ruin it had brought upon him, I was reminded of my own early days in the group. His pain, so raw and unfiltered, took me back to a time when I too had felt utterly defeated, yet standing before him was tangible proof of survival, my own, and I hoped it served as a beacon of hope. After the session, I approached him. "Hey, I just wanted to say, I know it doesn't feel like it now, but it gets better. It really does." He looked up, his eyes weary but grateful, and nodded. Our shared understanding, forged in the crucible of similar experiences, transcended words. Outside the group, I continued to mend bridges with old friends and build new relationships. As I expanded my circle, I found myself more open to different perspectives, more willing to engage with the world around me. The experiences I'd gone through had altered my view of what truly mattered, and I began prioritizing connections that enriched my life. With this mindset, I rekindled my passion for photography, a hobby I'd long neglected. It started one morning as I was sipping coffee on my balcony, the sun casting a golden hue over the cityscape. I grabbed my old camera instinctively, snapping photos of the waking city. Capturing those moments, the interplay of light and shadow, the quiet beauty in the ordinary, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Photography became another form of therapy, a way to see the world through a lens of appreciation rather than regret. I started venturing out on weekends, exploring different neighborhoods, capturing scenes that spoke to me. In these quiet moments, I found peace, a balm for the chaos that once dominated my life. One Saturday, as I wandered through a local farmer's market, my camera in hand, I bumped into a familiar face. It was Sarah, a colleague from work whom I'd always admired for her tenacity and warmth. We chatted for a while, our conversation flowing effortlessly. As we parted ways, she mentioned an upcoming photography exhibition she thought I'd enjoy. The exhibition was the following weekend, and I decided to go. It was being held at a small gallery downtown, featuring local artists. As I walked through the exhibits, I found myself mesmerized by the diversity of perspectives and the stories each photograph told. It reminded me of the support group, how different lives and experiences could intersect and resonate. Toward the end of the evening, I came across a series of photographs that stopped me in my tracks. They were black and white, stark yet profoundly emotive. Each image depicted a scene of quiet resilience, a single flower blooming in a barren field, a child's hand reaching out to touch the rain, an elderly couple holding hands. The simplicity and depth of these images moved me, speaking to my journey in ways words never could. Standing there, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Sarah. "Beautiful, aren't they?" she remarked, her eyes scanning the photos alongside mine. We started talking first about the art, but soon our conversation meandered into more personal territory, our passions, our pasts, and the things that kept us anchored. As the gallery began to empty out, I realized how much I'd enjoyed her company. There was an ease between us that felt rare and precious. We exchanged numbers, promising to meet up again soon. It was an unexpected connection, one that felt promising in its simplicity and sincerity. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I spent more time together, often exploring the city or sharing quiet dinners. There was no rush, no pressure to define what we were. Just two people, finding joy in each other's presence, allowing things to unfold naturally. Through all of this, I continued to write in my journal, capturing not just the events of my days, but the emotions they stirred in me. Writing had become a sanctuary, a space where I could process my thoughts and reflect on my journey. It served as a constant reminder of how far I'd come and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Looking back, I realized that my story was not just one of survival, but of transformation. From betrayal and heartbreak had emerged a deeper understanding of myself and a commitment to live authentically and intentionally. I was no longer defined by what I'd lost, but by what I'd gained, a life rich with new beginnings, friendships, and the promise of love. Ultimately, the journey taught me that our past does not dictate our future. Each day is a canvas, waiting for us to paint it with the colors of our choosing. And in embracing this truth, I found the freedom to not only heal, but to flourish. In the spirit of embracing new beginnings, I decided to host a small gathering at my apartment. It was something I hadn't done in years, not since before the divorce, when the walls of my home still echoed with laughter and companionship. But now, with a sense of newfound confidence and a circle of friends I genuinely cherished, it felt like the right time to bring people together. I spent the morning preparing, selecting a playlist that mirrored the eclectic mix of emotions I'd experienced over the past few months, hopeful, introspective, and a bit nostalgic. I cooked a few dishes, nothing extravagant, just comfort food meant to warm the soul. As I moved around the kitchen, the aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, mingling with the soft notes of a jazz saxophone drifting from the speakers. By early evening, the first of my guests began to arrive. John from the support group was the first to step through the door, a bottle of wine in hand and a genuine smile on his face. We exchanged a quick embrace, his presence reminding me of the strength we'd drawn from each other during those early, difficult days. Soon after, a steady stream of friends followed, colleagues from work, neighbors, and a few new acquaintances I'd met through my photography outings. The apartment hummed with conversation and laughter, each voice a testament to the connections I'd rebuilt and the new ones I'd formed. It was both surreal and comforting to see this tapestry of people, each thread woven together by shared experiences and mutual respect. Sarah arrived a little later, her entrance marked by the kind of warmth that seemed to light up the room. She carried a small potted plant, a gesture that felt both thoughtful and symbolic, a living reminder of growth and nurturing. We shared a quick hug, and as she stepped back, her eyes met mine with a smile that said more than words ever could. The evening unfolded effortlessly. We gathered in small clusters, conversations flowing from one topic to another, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the occasional clink of glasses. At one point, I found myself standing back, observing the scene with a sense of gratitude. This was a moment I'd once thought impossible, a gathering of people who genuinely cared for one another, in a space that had once felt so empty. Later, as the party began to wind down, Sarah and I ended up on the balcony. The city sprawled out beneath us like a sea of twinkling lights. The air was cool, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and the promise of something new. "Thank you for inviting me," she said, leaning against the railing. "Tonight's been wonderful." "I'm glad you came," I replied, meeting her gaze. "It's strange, isn't it? How life can change so drastically in just a few months." She nodded, a contemplative expression crossing her face. "I think sometimes we have to let the old parts of us die in order to make room for the new." Her words resonated deeply, echoing the journey I'd been on since the divorce. It was about more than just surviving. It was about evolving, about embracing the person I was becoming. As the last of the guests departed, leaving behind an apartment filled with the remnants of a joyful evening, Sarah lingered. We tidied up the space together, our movements synchronized in a comfortable silence. There was no rush, just the quiet understanding that we were both exactly where we needed to be. When the apartment was finally back in order, we stood by the door, her hand resting lightly on the doorknob. "Tonight was really special," she said softly. "I'd love to do this again sometime." "Definitely," I agreed, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "I'm looking forward to it." With a gentle goodnight and a promise to meet again soon, she left, leaving me alone in the quiet of my apartment. But it was a different kind of solitude than I'd once known, not the oppressive weight of loneliness, but a peaceful contentment, a space where I could reflect and dream. I took a moment to sit on the couch, letting the events of the evening settle in. My mind drifted back to the photographs from the exhibition, the stark images of resilience and hope. They had mirrored my own journey in such profound ways, capturing the essence of transformation and the beauty in starting anew. Picking up my journal, I began to write, capturing the highlights of the evening, the laughter, the conversations, the subtle shifts in my own understanding of what it meant to connect. As I wrote, a sense of clarity washed over me. This was my life now, a tapestry of experiences and emotions woven together by the choices I made and the people I welcomed into my world. In that moment, I realized that the chapter of betrayal and loss was truly behind me. I was no longer defined by the wounds of the past, but by the strength and resilience I'd discovered within myself. The future was an open canvas, ready to be painted with the vibrant colors of love, friendship, and adventure. Closing the journal, I felt a profound sense of peace. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that I was not alone on this journey. The potential for happiness was limitless, and I was finally free to explore it one day at a time. The next morning, the sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft patterns across the room. I woke up feeling lighter than I had in a long time. As I lingered in bed, I thought about the night before, the laughter, the warmth, and the sense of belonging that filled my home. It was a stark contrast to the silence that used to echo through these walls. After a few moments, I got up, made myself a cup of coffee, and settled into my favorite spot by the window. The city was waking up. The soft hum of life outside was a comforting backdrop as I sipped my coffee and let my mind wander. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The divorce had been brutal, leaving me feeling stripped and raw. The betrayal, the infidelity, the financial deceit had shattered the illusion of my marriage, leaving me with a profound sense of loss. But I had rebuilt piece by piece, finding solidarity in unexpected places and discovering strength I hadn't known I possessed. As I reflected, my mind drifted back to Sarah. Her presence at the party had been a balm, her warmth and understanding providing a sense of connection that felt both familiar and new. I realized how important she had become to me, a friend who had been there just when I needed someone the most. The day unfolded quietly. I spent it tidying up, doing chores, and catching up on some reading. In the afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. The park nearby was one of my favorite spots, a small oasis of green amidst the urban sprawl. As I walked, the crisp autumn air filled my lungs, invigorating and refreshing. It was in moments like these, alone with my thoughts and the rustling leaves, that I could fully appreciate the transformative power of solitude. I no longer feared it. Instead, I embraced it as an opportunity for introspection and growth. I thought back to my ex. I hadn't heard from him in months, not since the legalities of our separation were finalized. The memories of our arguments, the acrimony, and the betrayal felt like a distant dream, a different life. I wondered where he was now, how he was doing. But it was a fleeting curiosity, one that no longer held any emotional weight. Walking back home, I passed by a bookstore, the kind with creaky wooden floors and the scent of old paper. Impulsively, I went inside. I wandered through the aisles, running my fingers over the spines of books, feeling their potential stories waiting to be discovered. I picked up a novel that caught my eye, a story about resilience and redemption, themes that resonated deeply with my own journey. Later that evening, I received a text from Sarah. "Hey, I was thinking about last night. It was really something special. Let's grab coffee soon." There was a comfort in her words, a promise of continued friendship that warmed me. "Absolutely," I replied. "How about this weekend?" The exchange felt easy, natural, a testament to the bond we'd formed. As the week progressed, I threw myself into work, photography, and planning my next steps. I had been contemplating a solo trip, something I had always wanted to do but never had the courage to. Now, the idea didn't seem so daunting. It felt liberating. I decided to visit the coast. The ocean had always been a place of solace for me, its vastness a reminder of how small my problems truly were. I booked a quaint little cabin by the sea, a place where I could disconnect from the world and reconnect with myself. When the weekend arrived, I met Sarah at a cozy cafe nestled in a quiet corner of the city. The smell of freshly brewed coffee enveloped us as we settled into our seats by the window. We talked about everything and nothing, work, life, dreams. Her laughter was infectious, her perspective refreshing. As we chatted, I shared my plans for the trip. Her eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That sounds amazing. You deserve this. It's going to be an incredible experience," she said, her voice full of encouragement. Her support meant the world to me. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone in this journey, that I had people who cared about me and wanted to see me thrive. The days leading up to my trip were filled with anticipation. I packed lightly, taking only what I needed and leaving behind the excess baggage of my past. On the morning of my departure, I stood in my apartment, taking one last look around. It felt different now, a space that was truly mine, filled with the echoes of laughter and the promise of new beginnings. As I locked the door behind me, I realized that this trip was more than just a getaway. It was a declaration of my independence, a celebration of my resilience, and an affirmation of the life I was building. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, confident in the knowledge that I was stronger, wiser, and finally free to be unapologetically myself. The drive to the coast was surreal. As I navigated through the winding roads flanked by dense forests and sprawling fields, I felt a sense of freedom that was both exhilarating and unfamiliar. The further I got from the city, the lighter I felt, as if each mile put more distance between me and the burdens of my past. Arriving at the cabin, I was greeted by the salty tang of the sea breeze, which gave way to the rhythmic roar of the ocean. The cabin itself was charming, nestled among towering pines, with a small porch that overlooked the rocky shoreline. It was simple, yet perfect, a place where I could let my thoughts drift like the waves that crashed below. Inside, I unpacked my modest belongings and let the space envelop me. It was a welcome change from the urban clamor, and I found solace in the simplicity of it all. That evening, as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I took a walk along the beach. The cool sand shifted beneath my feet, grounding me with each step. Alone with my thoughts, I reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought me here. The betrayal and heartache felt like a lifetime ago. My ex-husband's deceit had left me reeling, but it had also forced me to confront truths about myself, about my strength, my resilience, and my capacity to rebuild. As the waves lapped at my feet, I realized that I had come out the other side stronger, unburdened by the weight of old wounds. The next morning, I woke to the sound of seagulls and the gentle lull of the ocean. I brewed a cup of coffee and took it out to the porch, wrapping myself in a blanket against the brisk morning air. From my vantage point, I watched the ocean stretch endlessly, its horizon a line that divided the known from the unknown. As I sat there, I thought about Sarah and the friendship that had become a cornerstone of my new life. Her unwavering support and genuine kindness had been a lifeline during my darkest days. And now, she was part of the light that illuminated my path forward. I made a mental note to send her a postcard, a small token of gratitude for the laughter and light she had brought into my life. With the day stretching ahead, I decided to venture into the nearby town. It was quaint, with a main street lined with small shops and cafes, the kind of place where everyone seemed to know each other. I wandered through an antique store, fascinated by the collection of items that seemed to whisper stories of the past. I picked up a small ornate box, its intricate carvings catching my eye. It felt like a symbol of the new beginnings I was embracing, and I decided to buy it as a keepsake. Afterwards, I stopped at a local bakery, the smell of freshly baked bread drawing me in. I ordered a coffee and a pastry, taking a seat by the window to watch the world go by. There was a comforting anonymity in being in a place where no one knew me. It was a reminder that I had the freedom to redefine myself, free from the shadows of my past. As the day wore on, I returned to the beach, my thoughts as fluid as the ocean before me. I began to write in my journal, the words flowing as freely as the tides. I wrote about my hopes, my fears, and the dreams I was daring to dream once more. It was cathartic, an unburdening of the soul that left me feeling lighter with each sentence. By evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey to this point had been fraught with challenges, but it had also been one of profound growth. I had learned to let go of the bitterness that had once consumed me, to forgive not for him but for myself. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead with an open heart and an unyielding spirit. As I watched the stars emerge in the vast sky, I realized that this trip was more than just a physical journey. It was a testament to my resilience, a celebration of the life I was rebuilding. I was more than the sum of my past mistakes and betrayals. I was a woman who had fought her way back from the brink, and I was proud of the person I was becoming. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the people who had supported me, for the experiences that had shaped me, and for the promise of new beginnings that tomorrow held. The ocean, with its endless ebb and flow, was a mirror of my own journey, and I knew that no matter what came next, I was ready to meet it head-on.